Bapak Fauzi Bowo was the first elected governor of Jakarta, a sprawling metropolis. The administrative region that he's responsible for is about 10 million people, and the greater region of Greater Jakarta, 28 million people. In a country that's growing very rapidly, and in this environment, growing very sustainably, and building a lot of infrastructure and capacity for its population. Jakarta is also a very cosmopolitan city, representing the diversity of Indonesia as a whole. And Bapak Fauzi Bowo is known to be within the political system, a career administrator,
yes.
Someone who grew up as
That's correct.
the administrator who's worked in Jakarta all his life. You were trained as an urban planner.
I grew up with the administration.
And you grew up with the administration.
Yeah.
Despite all the promises of Jakarta,
Yes.
all the promise that the city has, it's also a city that encapsulates the problems related with a growing economy.
It is, yeah.
Like Indonesia,
That's correct.
and like many cities of
Other
its size.
development cities, yeah.
You are somewhat ambivalent in terms of your position, and perhaps that's what we need to start this conversation with, on how the infrastructure for Jakarta is to be built going forward. One of the most obvious needs that anyone who has traveled into Jakarta today or travels into Jakarta is the need for transportation infrastructure.
That's correct. Yeah.
And yet, sometime earlier this year, after years and years of study in terms of building a mass transport railway system in the city, we were one of those who said, wait, this is not going to work. We don't have the money to fund it. This is not how we're going to fund it. Let's shelve the plan for the moment. What was in your mind when you came to that conclusion?
That was not 100% correct, actually. We are going to build the MRT. Yes.
Eventually?
No. There's a concrete plan on a pipeline. We're going to start with the groundbreaking at the beginning of next year. So the phase that we are in now is it's a tender process for the project. This MRT is going to finance by the Japanese step loan, the special terms for economic partnerships. The first stretch would be about 15 kilometers from the southern tip of Jakarta into the middle of the city. So we're going to continue with the next stretch into the northern part of Jakarta, another 13 kilometers. And we are discussing now with many parties about the east-west corridor. Well, the reason I gave some statement, I think a year ago, that was about the monorail. Yeah. Because the monorail was a private initiative, and the private party has given up. So we had the option either to take it over or cancel it. Yeah. But currently, we're giving priorities to our BRT, one of the largest and most extended in Southeast Asia. Last year, 2010, the BRT the system was used by 90 million passengers trips. So it was quite efficient in a way, but for some part of Jakarta it's not enough. If you consider that 28 million people living in the surrounding area in the greater metropolitan of Jakarta, so we need heavy duty transportation, mass transport. That is the rail, which we're going to revitalize, and also the MRT, which we're going to build.
Give us a sense of the funding mechanism that you finally came to a conclusion to. Why didn't you go to the bond market directly? And what is it that about the Japanese infrastructure funding mechanism which still is attractive today?
Let me start with the Japanese funding, because the Japanese step loans offered a 30 years loan with plus 10 years grace period, and then with a very low interest, I think 0.45% adjusted. That is certainly attractive for a project like MRT, because this kind of project cannot be financed by commercial loan or by a public-private partnership. So what we're trying to select is what could be done by the private. We should leave it to the private. What cannot, it should be taken over by either public-private partnership or fully government-funded. The BRT, for example, on the other hand, so we are relying on our budget capacity. So we manage so far, but the more requirement will arise, we have to find for another ways as to fund the project. And but transportation is only one of the many, the long list that we have as far as infrastructure is
Well,
concerned.
you've got other priorities like power, like water,
Yes.
and so on.
Yeah.
But just staying on transportation, does the Japanese funding come with limitations in terms of the choices that you would have been able to make? For example, the BRT choice itself, instead of going for the heavier rail transportation, which is quite obvious for a city like
Well, it's
Jakarta.
actually, we started with the BRT because of the limited funding that we had 5 years ago. But some of the corridors, the BRT corridors, now has to be moved somewhere else because as soon as we are ready with the MRT. But this is already in the plan. Choices for Jakarta is certainly train, heavy rail, and train. But due to the limited funding, we have to combine it with other modes of transportation.
Have you studied the way in which other cities around the world of your size have funded their infrastructure and some of the limitations that they've had to face?
Yeah, take New Delhi, for example. We have a similar setup as the metro in Delhi. Unfortunately, we are late because when we started approaching and setting up the plan for the MRT, we were together with the with Delhi MRT, but then they have already 3 lanes in operation. They put into operation and they carry on 3 million people each and every day. So we're just about to start with the construction.
You are a career administrator in a country where politicians and the whole political landscape is constantly in the move. And also, you're a career administrator with an impeccable reputation and in terms of delivery, in terms of standing above corruption, and so on.
Thank you.
How do you manage that? And how do you deal with the different vested interests that are obviously in place in a situation like Jakarta?
It is not as simple as ABC, but if you start properly, I think the following step will be much easier.
Right. Now let's just use the rail project again. Okay. I'm sure there are many constituents who want to have a piece of the action in that way.
Yes.
Now, how do you construct a mechanism where you're satisfying the different constituents?
Well, I actually go straight away and discuss with the Constitution. So, direct approach. Yeah. But at the same time, I do reform my administration, put transparency and accountability on top of everything, because this is about good governance, right? Well, I try to also to invite the private sector to follow and to join this good governance. I'm lucky to some extent that they follow us. The slightly difficult part is actually to invite a political party to join, because they tend to, I would not say every political party, but they would, I should say, they tend to frame themselves from one election to the other election. And talking about MRT, talking about environmental issues, those are long-term issues. You need to educate also those people involved on the political party to be involved on the long-term on this long-term effort.